Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria, and I am a fine art artist, illustrator, and art teacher, and welcome back to another episode of Art Tutorials. Today, what we're actually going to talk about is all about hatching. So, what is hatching? How many different types of hatching there are? How do we actually create hatching? How to use it? How to apply it? And things you want to keep in mind to help you get a better understanding of hatching and also being able to master it. And this is part 2 of all about hatching, so welcome back everybody, and make sure if you haven't watched the first episode of all about hatching, make sure you watch that first before we jump into this one, because this here today we are going to concentrate a little bit more on how to actually apply it to different shapes and forms. Now, I kind of explained a little bit in the first episode, but it wasn't as much in detail. So today what we're actually going to jump into is that I'm going to show you 2 different types. There's going to be one that's for a flat surface and then the other one that's more for a rounded surface. Now let's get a paper, pencil, eraser, and brush, and let's get started. So what we're actually going to start with is we need a shape to fill in our hatching with. So I'm just going to kind of quickly draw a, not a pyramid though, but the one that's like not a square at the bottom. I forgot what it was called. But anyways, some type of 3-dimensional shape, because if it's flat, it won't kind of work out as well if we were to pick a 3-dimensional shape, because when you're shading in something that's 3D, it's a little bit different than filling in something that's flat, because there's perspective going into it and also just how the shape would curve or how the shape would change as we add hatching, and then what type of direction of hatching we would want to add. So here we are going to fill in first the left side of this 3-dimensional shape, and what happens here is that, as you can see, I started from the very top and kind of gradually went downwards, and if you guys see the arrow on the side, that is the direction of the hatching that I'm using. So we are going to kind of like gradually layer that in and have a first layer. So next thing we're going to do here is that we are going to add our next direction of hatching. So this would basically become a cross hatching. So what we will want to do here is that, as you can see, this hatching follows the baseline. So direction of hatching is actually pretty straightforward to find. As you can see, the first hatching was following the side of the shape, the left side, and then now we're adding a second direction, which is the bottom angle of this new shape. And you can actually add as many directions as you need. There's no actual limit of like how many layers you can add, but definitely be mindful of how dark the shadow is, and also be mindful of like where in particular is darker. So as you can see, I'm adding more on the edge here because the lighting is coming from more or less the right side, and what would happen here is that I would want to add more of the hatching it's blurring out, more of the hatching on the edges, just because it's the most sharp edge and it also brings the most contrast. So that's why we want to add more on the edge over there. And this one we're following the kind of like the central line, the central division for our shape over here. So now we're gonna fill in the right side, but there's going to be a little bit of hatching, but it's going to be a lot lighter. So as you can see, this side we are going to follow the right side direction of our shape over here, and then for the cross hatching we're doing the bottom line, so that bottom angle over there. And what we could do over here is that we could add like a third layer though, but I'm gonna keep it with 2 because it is the lighter side of all three surfaces. And then what we're going to do here for the bottom surface over here is I'm actually not going to fill in the whole thing because it's more or less a kind of like a bottom right lighting, and as you can see we have the same direction as we have for the previous side on the left. And now what we're going to do here is that we're also going to add the other direction from the right side. So we're kind of doing a cross hatching from bottom to top right corner and then bottom right corner to top left corner. And make sure you keep your layers very light, so that way even if you add like a third layer, as you can see right now, we're adding our third layer, which is basically the baseline over here, you would still be able to kind of control how dark you would want it to be. Definitely it's a lot easier to make it darker if you need stronger dark accent over here, kind of like what we're adding here at the very edge. So it kind of gives it like a more dynamic feel because of like the super dark against the super light value tones. And we're gonna add just a little bit more at the bottom left over here, just to kind of have a little bit of touch-ups and all that. Gonna do a little bit more touch-ups. And you can actually, once you're finished filling in all sides over here, you can actually go back and kind of tweak a little bit just to kind of see, okay, this part could be a little bit darker, we could probably smooth this side out a little bit, clean a little bit of the edges and all that. So, and there you go, that's how we fill in a smooth surface or kind of like a flat surface, and how we would actually apply the straight hatching to it. I've also prepared a special drawing exercise for you guys. It's also another hatching exercise and kind of teaches you how to fill in and apply these straight hatching and how to apply cross hatching to our three-dimensional shape. So there's instructions at the very top, so basically fill in the shape with a combo of straight cross hatching, and there's a whole bunch of steps over here on the side that you could follow. So basically the step-by-step is actually pretty straightforward. You would pick a side that you want to fill in first, and as you can see on the side over here, there's arrows and the little bubbles. So that's basically the direction that you would be using to fill in the cross hatching. Usually there's like 2 to 3 different directions that you could use, and then when you're filling the directions, make sure you fill in one direction at a time, so you don't want to get yourself too confused at the same time. So make sure you do it one at a time, and feel free to kind of play around with where you want to add it exactly, so that you can actually add a little bit of the tips that I mentioned in the first episode or in the demonstration that I showed you earlier, where you kind of see where I added darker shadows, where I added a little bit more layers, so you can kind of try to balance that out and see what would work best and just kind of experiment. It's more about the experimenting and kind of getting more familiar with how to use the straight hatching onto a three-dimensional surface. And the nice thing about this one is that there is a larger form at the bottom, and then for this particular practice and this exercise over here is, since it's a larger area that you have to fill in hatching, this would kind of practice to help you patch up smaller areas of hatching, because for you to kind of like draw like a straight large line could be a little bit more challenging and tricky. So you would usually just break it apart into probably like 2 parts or like 3 or 4 parts, and then you just kind of stitch them together. But the key idea is that when you stitch them, you don't want patches, you don't want spots of unevenness, because that would make the surface look really blocky, and then there's like suddenly some dark spots and light spots, which doesn't look as good and not as smooth. The download link is in the description below, so make sure you check that out, download it, and have fun practicing. Okay, next what we have here is some organic curved shapes. So we're gonna draw a jelly bean, okay? So basically this funny looking jelly bean over here is the perfect shape to practice curved cross hatching, since it bends oddly in different directions. It's actually the perfect practice shape to kind of explore and kind of discover and see how would we apply the curved hatching onto a curved surface and a more organic form where it tends to turn and change its direction midway. So what we're going to do here is we have it sketched out, and then we also have some highlights that we're going to leave empty, and here I'm just doing another example over here so I can actually draw the direction of the hatching over on top of it. So with the main central, like the body part of the jelly bean, you would want to kind of curve it this way. So as you can see how I draw the arrows downwards, and you kind of see it's curving downwards and it's also slightly rotating. So don't keep the curved line or the curved hatching the same. You want to make sure you kind of tilt it and rotate it. So let's go ahead and actually apply it to our actual shape over here, and as you can see, I'm actually not shading in the whole thing, since what happens is that center part there is a highlight that I want to keep it empty, so I'm making these curved hatchings quite short so that it stops right where the highlight would start and everything would curve down and then to the bottom there. So and then basically what you want to do here as a second layer is you can either add the same direction, or we can add a brand new direction in which we actually incorporate a curved cross hatching. So this one's following the bottom line of our jelly bean, and you can curve it from top to bottom, or for this case over here you can actually curve it from right to left, just because it's just easier for the hand to move over that way, or else it would feel very uncomfortable. But you would kind of apply a little bit at a time just to see where you would want a little bit more of the hatching, or just let it be because it's slightly bit lighter. But this jelly bean is actually quite dark, so we are probably going to add quite a bit of layers. So those are probably going to be the two main directions, and then here I'm filling in the other side of the jelly bean. So you can kind of see where this part is the other side of the curved area. So this angle itself, it's still curved though, but you want to make sure that you kind of remember the direction of the hatching, because that makes a really big difference here while you're filling in. And I'm just adjusting over here because the highlight could have been a little bigger, and usually before you actually fill in all the way to the edge of the highlight, I would usually erase it, because I'm not a really big fan of having a harsh line around it, because that really does kill off the realistic look to a form that we're shading in. And here, as you can see, I'm doing the combination of cross hatching, so it's going the kind of like the horizontal way direction, but it's still curved. And then here we're kind of slowly adjusting so that the highlight gets slightly bit smaller, and we're kind of tweaking just to see how far we can actually go until we reach the perfect spot. So basically now we have a nice combination of the crossed curve hatching. So next over here, we're going to do a similar thing. So we're going to kind of start closing off the top part, and this is the only part that you actually see the curved hatching go all the way through the jelly bean before it kind of goes only to the right side, because we have to keep that highlight out. And now we're adding kind of like third and fourth layer just to make it a lot darker. So as you can see, we want to make sure we add light layers one at a time. And as you slowly build that up, it will gradually make that side a lot darker. And as you can see over here, we're going to use the other inner side of the jelly bean as our second or like third direction, so it would create a cross hatching. And the key idea is that, as you can see where I drew the arrows, you can break it apart, so you don't have to actually do a really long curvy line like the first one. You could break it apart into smaller pieces so that you can actually fill it in and kind of turn and rotate as you go. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Once you get the hang of it, you kind of control the length of your hatching, which comes in really handy with these shapes because sometimes the darker parts are not very wide, so you don't want to fill in the whole thing with the curved hatching. It's just more specific areas, kind of like what I'm doing right here. So adding layers very gradually, just kind of working on specific spots because those spots are slightly bit darker. And as you can see, the shape's kind of forming and it's becoming a lot more three-dimensional. We kind of see the shapes come out. So yeah, it's pretty satisfying. And over here at the tip, we're probably going to do a different direction because since it's kind of like rounded, we want to go around the highlight over here. Sorry, let me add a little bit more over here. And like, don't be afraid to actually add the hatching back and forth. So I did the curved hatching from top to bottom, and I also did the other hatching, which is following the line of the jelly bean from the bottom side too. So make sure you kind of play around with it, see where you need darker spots, and then adjust your curved hatching to it. So over here, I'm gonna show you guys a little bit on how the tip of the jelly bean would work. So you would want to think of it as the center spot, and then the curved hatching would curve out from the center to the outskirts of the jelly bean. So it's kind of like the beach ball method, or like the beach ball idea, where you would actually see those lines kind of curve around it, and it kind of curves and changes the angle and orientation of the curve. So that's something to keep in mind and be very mindful about, because that definitely reinforces the shape and makes the shape look more curved, because you have lines that kind of tell you, okay, this shape is curving this way. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more hatching over here. I think so. I kind of mentioned majority of the things I need though, but as you can see, we're going back again on the inside over there, adding a little bit of dark hatching and just more tweaking, lots of tweaking. When it comes to shading in it, there's just definitely a lot of tweaking going in over here, adjusting, kind of see, okay, this is too dark, this is too light. If it's too light, you just add more layers. If it's too dark, then you probably want to go back and erase a little bit, but we try to prevent from adding too much most of the time, because it's easier to add more than to add less, because if you add less, that's better. If it's not dark enough, you just add more layers. But yeah. And that's it for the curved one. So here is another drawing exercise for you as well. This is the curved hatching, or the curved cross hatching version of it. And it's very similar to the one that I showed you earlier with the straight cross hatching. This one is our jelly bean, Mr. Jelly Bean. And we got tips and advice there. We also have instructions on the top right area, and it's basically the same thing. So keep in mind that you want to add your cross hatching one at a time. And with this one, as in for sides, you would probably pick basically the direction. Okay, so as in for directions over here, you would actually pick either the one that's curving around the body of the jelly bean, or you would actually do the hatching for the long side of the jelly bean. So depending on which one you would prefer to start off with, but just follow the video. That's like the most straightforward way if you really don't know where to start off. So you can start off the same areas that I did in the video. And what you could also do here is I noted down all directions that you need for the jelly beans. So the one on the left, that's the one that you fill in. And then we also do have a big jelly bean for you to fill in. And then this one, I think the big one will be a little bit easier to kind of fill in because you have more space to curve. But feel free to have fun, challenge yourself to try out different sizes, different curved cross hatching, and just experiment, get familiar with it, and practice. And that's pretty much it for All About Hatching Part 2. Thank you again so much for watching this video and also the video before, and I hope this was helpful for you to kind of get a better idea of how to use hatching and the different types of hatching and how you would actually apply it to the different surfaces and shapes. So like whether if it's a flat surface or more like a rounded organic surface like a jelly bean or someone's face or anything in that nature. Now, just for a little bit of a summary, it's not going to be super long this time because we kind of finished talking about most of the important things in the first episode, but we kind of learned how to apply our straight hatching to a smooth and flat surface, and then we also learned how to apply a curved hatching or curved cross hatching to our organic shape, or kind of like a more curved and spherical form like our jelly bean. But yeah, so if you guys want more drawing exercises, I do have extra ones on my Patreon, so feel free to check those out. If you become a learner fuzz tier or a student fuzz tier, you get a chance to get more constructions, drawing exercises. I also have like weekly drawing exercises that are released every Monday for my learner fuzz and student fuzz tiers. And for my student fuzz tiers, they also get a monthly correction of the drawing practices that they do throughout the week. And also they would get a 30-minute drawing online lesson through Zoom meeting. So you guys get a one-on-one lesson with me once a month, so you can kind of ask the questions that you need, anything that you're struggling with or having problems with. I'll be more than happy to help you out and give you tips and advices on that. So have fun, check those out. There's going to be a lot more coming out soon, so I'm trying to kind of bring more drawing exercises that could help and improve your drawing skills, your painting skills, and just generally everything you want to learn about art. So yeah, but thanks for watching again, you guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to get the latest video coming up. Please also do like the video, press the like button, and then also please also comment on the video if you guys have any more questions, or if there's any like suggestions on new videos that you want me to create for tutorials and step-by-steps, things that you kind of want to learn. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode. But until then, have fun drawing, keep up the great work, have fun practicing, and yes, I'll catch you guys later. But take care, have a wonderful day or wonderful evening and wonderful week. Bye!